A pyramid so dangerous, Egypt still hides it. Tonight, we journey deep into the silent deserts of Egypt, far beyond the crowded touristic pyramids, into a place rarely spoken of, rarely shown, and almost never explored by ordinary visitors. Here, hidden beneath layers of neglect, stands a structure unlike anything else in the land of the pharaohs. A structure that seems out of place, out of time, and wrapped in an aura of secrecy. A monument that Egypt does not celebrate, does not promote, and for decades barely acknowledged. This is the Black Pyramid. It rises from the desert not as a perfect, sharp-edged masterpiece, but as a dark, slumping, almost melted mass of ancient mud and stone. A pyramid that looks wounded, abandoned, half swallowed by the earth. Its once grand sides have collapsed, its casing stones long gone, and its core exposed to the unforgiving desert. Yet inside this ruined mountain of history lies a story that challenges our understanding of ancient Egypt. A story of bold engineering, catastrophic decisions, forbidden secrets and hidden chambers. A story of a pharaoh who dared to break tradition, and a monument that may still be guarding mysteries that have never been uncovered. As the sun sets over Dashur and the desert sky glows with its last golden light, the Black Pyramid casts a long, ominous shadow across the sand. This place is silent, almost eerily so. No crowds, no guides, no vendors, only wind, ancient mud brick, and a monument holding its breath under the weight of 4,000 years. Most people know Egypt through its successes: the Great Pyramid of Giza, the temples of Luxor, the tombs of the Valley of the Kings. But the story of Egypt is not only a story of perfection. It is a story of experiments, failures, innovations, and risks. And perhaps no monument represents that better than the Black Pyramid, built by the powerful Middle Kingdom pharaoh Amenemhat III. But why did Amenemhat choose to build such an unusual pyramid? What made him abandon it after years of construction? Why did ancient Egyptians consider it cursed or dangerous? And what lies beneath its surface, sealed behind collapsed corridors and unstable passageways? To uncover the full truth, we must travel back more than 3,800 years, into a period often overshadowed by the more famous Old Kingdom. It is a time of political stability, architectural innovation, and rising Egyptian power, the Middle Kingdom. And at its center stands a ruler whose ambition and vision would reshape the landscape of Egypt, Amenemhat III. But the story does not begin with grandeur. It begins with a gamble, a decision to build a pyramid, unlike any before. Instead of limestone core blocks, instead of a rocky plateau foundation, instead of a proven safe location, the pharaoh's engineers selected a site near the Nile floodplain, a place where the soil is soft, wet, and constantly shifting. And on that vulnerable ground, they decided to construct a massive pyramid using mud brick. Not stone, mud brick, a material that was cheaper, easier, lighter, but far weaker. And this weakness, combined with the instability of the land, would doom the pyramid almost from the moment construction began. Imagine the scene. Thousands of workers hauling bricks under the blazing Egyptian sun, priests performing rituals to bless the foundation, architects marking out corridors, chambers, and shafts deep within the structure. The air filled with dust and chants, the smell of wet clay drying into bricks. At first, everything must have looked promising. The pyramid rose quickly, layer after layer of mud brick shaped into a grand form. But as it grew taller, the weight pressing down increased, and the foundation began to sink. Cracks formed in the inner chambers, Corridors warped, support beams creaked. The very ground beneath the pyramid seemed to shift and sigh. Ancient engineers tried repairing the damage. They reinforced walls, filled cracks, added new support structures. But it was too late. The pyramid was failing even before it was completed. To the Egyptians, such a disaster was not merely engineering failure. It was a sign, a divine message, a warning from the gods. A pyramid was not a building. It was a sacred machine, a resurrection engine designed to carry the pharaoh's soul into eternity. For it to collapse was unthinkable. Word spread among priests, among workers, among the royal court. Whispers grew. The pyramid was cursed, unstable, dangerous. Some believed the god of the underworld, Osiris, had rejected it. Others believed the land itself was fighting back against the construction. Whether or not Amenemhat believed these omens, he could not risk being buried in a failing monument. A buried king must rest in a place of stability, not in a structure sinking under its own weight. But despite abandoning it as his tomb, Amenemhat III still used the Black Pyramid for something else, something many people don't know. Inside its dark chambers, two royal women would eventually be buried, a queen and a princess. Their burial equipment, jewelry, and sarcophagi were discovered thousands of years later, surviving in the collapsed heart of the pyramid. And so this structure became something unusual, not the eternal home of a king, but a strange hybrid monument, part temple, part royal tomb, part failed experiment. As we begin this journey, I want you to picture the Black Pyramid not as a ruin, but as it once was, still majestic, sharp-edged, its exterior gleaming with white limestone that reflected the sun. A structure meant to rival the great pyramids of the Old Kingdom, but destined to fall into darkness. This is where our story begins. A forgotten monument, a pharaoh's ambition, a disaster hidden beneath the sand, and a mystery that continues to challenge historians, archaeologists, and explorers even today. To understand the mystery of the Black Pyramid, we must first understand the man behind it, Pharaoh Amenemhat III, a ruler whose name echoes through the Middle Kingdom as one of its greatest kings. His reign was long, prosperous, and ambitious. He commanded vast building projects, controlled the Nile through masterful engineering, and ushered Egypt into an age of stability after years of political turbulence. But behind this success was a leader willing to experiment, willing to push boundaries, even willing to challenge the traditions of his ancestors. Amenemhat III did not inherit an Egypt in perfect order. Before him came years of instability, shifting alliances and threats from both within and beyond the borders. But when he rose to power, he transformed Egypt into a nation of expansion, order, and innovation. Under his rule, agriculture flourished. The Fayum region bloomed due to large-scale irrigation works. Trade expanded to new lands, and monumental architecture reached a new level of creativity. This creativity is what makes Amenemhat III so unique. Most pharaohs respected the architectural patterns laid down by generations before them. They followed formulas, traditions, and established designs that had proven successful. But Amenemhat dared to be different. He was not content with copying the great pyramids of the Old Kingdom. He wanted to improve them, enhance them, evolve them. He was fascinated by the possibilities of new construction methods, new materials, and new symbolic meanings. The Black Pyramid was not a careless mistake. It was a bold experiment. A different type of pyramid for a different era. A monument that attempted to blend practical efficiency with sacred symbolism. A pyramid made not of massive stone blocks, but of mud brick, supported by internal frameworks, coated in limestone casing, and built around an intricate system of chambers and tunnels. But why would a powerful king choose mud brick? instead of stone? The answer lies deep within the context of his time. By the Middle Kingdom, Egypt had shifted from building monuments strictly for divine display to creating structures that prioritized function, speed, and practicality. Stone was becoming more expensive, quarries farther away, and labor systems had changed. Mud brick, when used correctly, could create large structures quickly and efficiently. And with a limestone shell, it could still appear grand and eternal. Amenemhat's vision was clear. Build smarter, not harder. Build a pyramid that was visually impressive, but easier to erect. Build a tomb that functioned spiritually without draining the kingdom's resources. Build something new, something innovative, but innovation always carries risk. As construction of the Black Pyramid began, Amenemhat's architects designed a complex internal layout, unlike anything the Old Kingdom had ever attempted. Multiple burial chambers, long corridor or web of interconnected shafts, storage rooms, and symbolic pathways. This complexity, combined with the soft, unstable ground beneath, created the perfect conditions for disaster. Still, Amenemhat pushed forward. He visited the site often. He issued new instructions. He pushed his workers and engineers to refine, strengthen, and perfect the structure. For years, his confidence remained strong. He believed in the power of his vision. But as the pyramid grew, so did the signs of failure. Cracks appeared. The heavy mud brick walls began to shift. Pressure built inside the chambers. The deeper tunnels warped. The foundation slowly sank. The entire structure started leaning inward under its own weight. Ancient engineers tried to reinforce it with wooden supports, stone reinforcements, and filler material. But nothing could change the nature of the soil, or the consequences of such a daring design. For the pharaoh, this must have been devastating. The pyramid was more than a building. It was a symbol of eternal life. Sun-baked mud brick, salt erosion, sand abrasion, structural collapse, moisture damage, all slowly working together to transform a once bright monument into a blackened ruin. But this physical transformation created something else: myth. For centuries, locals spoke of the Black Pyramid in hushed tones. Its dark appearance made it seem cursed. Some said it was a pyramid of the dead where restless spirits wandered. Others believed it was black because it belonged to Osiris, the god of the underworld, and that the darkness symbolized death, mystery, and rebirth. Some legends claim that the pyramid turned black after the gods struck it, rejecting it as a tomb for a king. Others whispered that the darkness came from rituals performed inside, ancient ceremonies that left spiritual marks upon its walls. One of the most interesting beliefs was that the pyramid was intentionally dark, built to honor her black land of Kemet, the name Egyptians gave to their fertile soil. To them, black symbolized life, regeneration, and the floodwaters of the Nile. While this is a beautiful interpretation, it is not accurate. The ancient Egyptians did build black-colored monuments, but the Black Pyramid was never one of them. However, myths have a life of their own. Over generations, the pyramid became surrounded by tales of curses, forbidden passages, and hidden secrets buried beneath its darkened exterior. Travelers avoided it, believing it was a place of danger. Even in the modern era, the site sees very few visitors. Its appearance alone makes it feel different from other pyramids, less like a monument and more like a relic forgotten by time. But the truth behind its color reveals something much deeper about Egyptian history. The Black Pyramid stands as a reminder of how nature reshapes human ambition. It shows how a bright, beautiful structure can become darkened by centuries of wind, sun, water, and gravity. It teaches us that even colossal monuments are not immune to the forces of the earth. And yet, the darkness gives the pyramid a presence unlike any other. The Giza pyramids shine. The red pyramid glows. The bent pyramid gleams with soft light. But the Black Pyramid absorbs the sun. It appears heavy, ancient, and shadowed. A monument that seems to carry the weight of secrets within its walls. This is why, today, the Black Pyramid is one of the most visually striking structures in Egypt. Not because it was built to be dark, but because time transformed it. Nature carved a new identity onto its surface, and the myths that grew from that transformation made it even more mysterious. Hidden tunnels and theories of a secret chamber beneath the crumbling mass of the Black Pyramid lies a network of tunnels, passages, shafts, and hidden voids that have fascinated archaeologists, explorers, and historians for over a century. This pyramid, though structurally unstable and partially collapsed, contains one of the most complex internal layouts ever attempted by ancient Egyptian architects. And while some areas have been explored, others remain sealed, unreachable, or simply too dangerous to enter. This has led to a wave of speculation and a growing belief that the Black Pyramid may still hide secrets the world has never seen. To understand this mystery, we must first imagine stepping inside the pyramid as it stands today. The entrance slopes downward into darkness through a corridor that bends and warps under thousands of years of pressure. The air is thick, the walls damp, the floor uneven. Mud brick dust fills the air with every step. Parts of the passage feel like walking through a tunnel made of clay, soft and fragile. Wooden beams from ancient reinforcements sit tilted, cracked, and crushed. The deeper you go, the more the pyramid seems to close in around you, its heavy weight pressing silently from above. Yet, despite this collapse, the internal design is extraordinary. The architects of Amenemhat III created multiple chambers, interconnected by winding tunnels and secret passageways. There were storage rooms for funerary equipment, symbolic shafts meant to confuse tomb robbers, hidden niches, and even sealed doorways that blended seamlessly into the walls. The level of planning was meticulous, meant to protect the king's body, his treasures, and his journey into the afterlife. But the most intriguing part of the structure lies deep beneath the surface, in the form of unexplored voids detected by modern technology. In recent decades, ground-penetrating radar and seismic scans have revealed anomalies under the pyramid. Dark spaces, empty pockets, and deep cavities that do not correspond to known chambers. These voids appear in several locations: beneath the central axis of the pyramid, under the western side, and near the lower foundation level. Some are small, others are large enough to be full chambers. One particular anomaly lies beneath where Amenemhat III's burial chamber should have been. It is a void that does not align with the known layout. Archaeologists believe this could be a collapsed space, a natural sinkhole, or something man-made. A chamber that was sealed before the pyramid began to fail, a place no one has entered for almost 4,000 years. What could lie inside such a space? The possibilities are compelling. It could be an abandoned burial chamber, never completed. It could be a storage room containing ritual tools or sacred objects. It could be a symbolic chamber used for spiritual ceremonies. Or, according to some theories, it could be a secret, hidden tomb originally intended for the king. Many scholars believe Amenemhat III may have initially planned to be buried inside the Black Pyramid, and only later abandoned the idea when the structure began to collapse. If so, the earliest version of his burial chamber might still exist, sealed off, incomplete, and hidden behind layers of mud brick and debris. But there is another possibility, one that has fascinated researchers for decades. Some believe the pyramid contains underground passages leading deeper than the current known layout. Ancient Egyptians often constructed symbolic underworld paths beneath their tombs, representing the journey through the realm of the dead. In the unstable environment of the Black Pyramid, many of these potential passages may now be buried, blocked or distorted beyond recognition. When early explorers entered the Black Pyramid, they documented strange shafts that seemed to lead nowhere, and doorways that opened into collapsed spaces. These features may have once connected to deeper rooms, but today they are filled with rubble, sand, or warped stone, sealing off whatever lies beyond. The instability of the structure has prevented modern teams from digging deeper. The risk is too high. Even the slightest disturbance could trigger a major collapse. This is why so much of the pyramid remains unexamined, not due to secrecy, but due to danger. The walls lean, the ceilings sag, and the floors shift with pressure. Every step inside could be a step toward disaster, and yet the mystery persists. Another area of speculation involves a set of narrow tunnels discovered near the Queen's burial chambers. These tunnels are small, almost hidden, and their purpose remains unclear. Some believe they were symbolic pathways for the spirits. Others think they were escape routes for workers, and some suggest they may have once connected to deeper parts of the pyramid that are now lost. The alignment of these passages hints at a design far more extensive than what remains today. One of the most fascinating clues comes from ancient texts referencing the house of Amenemhat that sinks. This phrase appears in administrative documents describing supplies delivered to the pyramid complex. Some interpret it as a reference to the structural problems. Others believe it refers to an underground structure, a place literally beneath the earth. If such a chamber exists, it has never been found. Then there is the matter of the sealed blocks discovered inside the interior corridors. These blocks were clearly placed intentionally, not as reinforcements but as barriers. They appear to hide paths the workers did not want accessible after the pyramid was completed. Many pyramids use such blocking stones to protect the burial chamber. What makes the Black Pyramid unusual is that some of these blocks seem to lead to areas no archaeologist has ever mapped. This raises an intriguing question. Were there chambers built inside the Black Pyramid that no one has entered since ancient times? Given the pyramid's instability, it is entirely possible. Entire sections of the interior may have collapsed early, trapping sealed rooms behind walls of debris. Hidden chambers may have survived intact, simply cut off by the shifting core. These areas could still hold untouched artifacts, inscriptions, or information explaining why the pyramid failed. Some even believe the Black Pyramid may conceal writings that describe the king's decision to build a second pyramid, or records of rituals conducted during the collapse. Such documents into the walls. The level of planning was meticulous, meant to protect the king's body, his treasures, and his journey into the afterlife. But the most intriguing part of the structure lies deep beneath the surface, in the form of unexplored voids detected by modern technology. In recent decades, ground-penetrating radar and seismic scans have revealed anomalies under the pyramid. Dark spaces, empty pockets, and deep cavities that do not correspond to known chambers. These voids appear in several locations: beneath the central axis of the pyramid, under the western side, and near the lower foundation level. Some are small. Others are large enough to be full chambers. One particular anomaly lies beneath where Amenemhat III's burial chamber should have been. It is a void that does not align with the known layout. Archaeologists believe this could be a collapsed space, a natural sinkhole, or something man-made. A chamber that was sealed before the pyramid began to fail, a place no one has entered for almost 4,000 years. What could lie inside such a space? The possibilities are compelling. It could be an abandoned burial chamber, never completed. It could be a storage room containing ritual tools or sacred objects. It could be a symbolic chamber used for spiritual ceremonies. Or, according to some theories, it could be a secret, hidden tomb originally intended for the king. Many scholars believe Amenemhat III may have initially planned to be buried inside the Black Pyramid, and only later abandoned the idea when the structure began to collapse. If so, the earliest version of his burial chamber might still exist, sealed off, incomplete, and hidden behind layers of mud brick and debris. But there is another possibility, one that has fascinated researchers for decades. Some believe the pyramid contains underground passages leading deeper than the current known layout. Ancient Egyptians often constructed symbolic underworld paths beneath their tombs, representing the journey through the realm of the dead. In the unstable environment of the Black Pyramid, many of these potential passages may now be buried, blocked or distorted beyond recognition. When early explorers entered the Black Pyramid, they documented strange shafts that seemed to lead nowhere, and doorways that opened into collapsed spaces. These features may have once connected to deeper rooms, but today they are filled with rubble, sand, or warped stone, sealing off whatever lies beyond. The instability of the structure has prevented modern teams from digging deeper. The risk is too high. Even the slightest disturbance could trigger a major collapse. This is why so much of the pyramid remains unexamined, not due to secrecy, but due to danger. The walls lean, the ceilings sag, and the floors shift with pressure. Every step inside could be a step toward disaster, and yet the mystery persists. Another area of speculation involves a set of narrow tunnels discovered near the Queen's burial chambers. These tunnels are small, almost hidden, and their purpose remains unclear. Some believe they were symbolic pathways for the spirits, others think they were escape routes for workers, and some suggest they may have once connected to deeper parts of the pyramid that are now lost. The alignment of these passages hints at a design far more extensive than what remains today. One of the most fascinating clues comes from ancient texts referencing the House of Amenemhat that sinks. This phrase appears in administrative documents describing supplies delivered to the pyramid complex. Some interpret it as a reference to the structural problems. Others believe it refers to an underground structure, a place literally beneath the earth. If such a chamber exists, it has never been found. Then there is the matter of the sealed blocks discovered inside the interior corridors. These blocks were clearly placed intentionally, not as reinforcements but as barriers. They appear to hide paths the workers did not want accessible after the pyramid was completed. Many pyramids use such blocking stones to protect the burial chamber. What makes the Black Pyramid unusual is that some of these blocks seem to lead to areas no archaeologist has ever mapped. This raises an intriguing question. Were there chambers built inside the Black Pyramid that no one has entered since ancient times? Given the pyramid's instability, it is entirely possible. Entire sections of the interior may have collapsed early, trapping sealed rooms behind walls of debris. Hidden chambers may have survived intact, simply cut off by the shifting core. These areas could still hold untouched artifacts, inscriptions, or information explaining why the pyramid failed. Some even believe the Black Pyramid may conceal writings that describe the king's decision to build a second pyramid, or records of rituals conducted during the collapse. Such documents, if ever found, could offer one of the most significant insights into Middle Kingdom history. And then there are the theories that stretch beyond archaeology. Theories whispered in the background of Egyptian exploration. Some say the Black Pyramid contains forbidden texts, ancient knowledge deliberately hidden away. Others claim there are secret passages leading far below the surface, connecting to earlier structures buried beneath the sands. While these ideas remain speculative, the pyramid's strange design and unexplored voids fuel such beliefs. What we know for certain is this: the Black Pyramid still holds secrets, real secrets, not myths, not fantasies, actual, physical spaces beneath the surface that no human has seen in thousands of years. And until the day comes when technology is advanced enough, or the structure stable enough, to explore these voids safely, the mysteries of the hidden tunnels and sealed chambers will remain one of the most captivating enigmas of ancient Egypt. Amenemhat's second pyramid. Why he built Hawara. When a king abandons a pyramid, it is not a small decision. It is not something done quietly or without consequence. A pyramid represents eternity, a pharaoh's gateway to divine resurrection. To walk away from such a monumental project means something extraordinary must have gone wrong. And in the case of Amenemhat III, the failure of the Black Pyramid forced him into one of the most important decisions of his reign. He built an entirely new pyramid, one that would become known as the White Pyramid of Hawara. To understand why this decision was made, we must travel south to the edge of the Fayum oasis. Here, in a place where desert meets fertile land, Amenemhat III constructed a monument very different from the Black Pyramid. It was smaller, simpler, and far more stable, but above all, it was built on firm ground, solid geological foundations that would not shift or collapse. After the disaster at Dashur, the pharaoh could not risk another structural failure. His eternal fate depended on it. When Amenemhat chose Hawara, he chose safety over experimentation. He chose proven engineering over innovation. He chose a location that wouldn't betray him. The lessons learned from the Black Pyramid shaped every decision in Hawara's design. The most significant change was the core material. While the Black Pyramid relied heavily on mud brick, Hawara used a much stronger internal structure. The architects returned to methods reminiscent of the Old Kingdom, using stone, heavy blocks, and carefully reinforced chambers. The corridors were more compact, the passageways more direct, the layout more secure. Hawara was a pyramid built by a king who understood the consequences of risk and who had no intention of repeating the same mistakes. Another major lesson was in engineering load distribution. At Dashur, the numerous internal chambers and tunnels weakened the pyramid from within. At Hawara, the burial chamber was crafted from a single massive block of quartzite, so heavy that moving it into place required unimaginable effort. This alone demonstrates how differently Amenemhat approached his second pyramid. Instead of a fragile, multi-layered interior, he created a fortified, nearly impenetrable structure. In fact, the burial chamber of Hawara is one of the most extraordinary ever built in Egypt. A single quartzite monolith, weighing more than 100 tons, formed the central core. The ceiling and sarcophagus lid were also made from massive quartzite slabs. This chamber was not just strong, it was nearly indestructible. The quartzite was polished, carved with incredible precision, and designed to withstand both natural pressure and human interference. After the Black Pyramid's collapse, Amenemhat was determined that his final tomb would endure for eternity. But Hawara was more than just a pyramid. It was home to one of the most astonishing architectural wonders in ancient history, the legendary Egyptian labyrinth. Ancient writers like Herodotus and Strabo described the labyrinth as a colossal complex of halls, courtyards, chambers, and passageways so vast and intricate that it surpassed even the pyramids in grandeur. According to their accounts, the labyrinth contained thousands of rooms, some above ground and some below, with a layout so complex that no visitor could find their way without a guide. Herodotus wrote, "It is far greater than any description could possibly convey." This enormous complex stood right beside the Hawara pyramid. It served as a temple, an administrative center, a ceremonial hub, and a place of immense cultural importance. Sadly, most of the labyrinth has been lost to time, its stones quarried in later centuries. But ancient descriptions suggest that Amenemhat III's vision extended far beyond a simple burial structure. He wanted to create a spiritual and political masterpiece. Another document speaks of adjustments made to the lower chambers, a subtle line that, in retrospect, seems to describe emergency repairs attempted by architects trying to salvage the collapsing interior. These tiny hints tell us something astonishing. The ancient Egyptians did not hide the structural problems internally. The sinking was known. It was monitored. It was recorded. It was part of the daily reality for those building it. There are also fragments describing limestone deliveries being redirected to another site. This shift may mark the moment when Amenemhat III decided the Black Pyramid was no longer worth the investment. Instead of wasting valuable stone on a failing monument, he may have ordered supplies moved to the future site of Hawara, the second pyramid that would eventually become his true tomb. But the most striking pieces of evidence are not about materials. They are about rituals. Several papyri mention ceremonies performed to strengthen the foundation. These rituals involved purification, offerings, and invocations to Geb, the god of the earth, asking him to stabilize the house of millions of years. Such rituals were highly unusual. Normally, foundations were ritually blessed only once at the start of construction. The fact that additional rituals were performed suggests the workers and priests feared that the ground itself had been offended. One line is particularly chilling. It simply says, "The ground moved beneath us." Whether this meant a literal tremor or the slow sinking of the pyramid, no one can say for sure. But to the people working at Dashur, it was alarming. In their worldview, the gods communicated through the land. A shifting foundation meant divine displeasure. Another clue comes from tomb inscriptions of officials who served during the reign of Amenemhat III. Some inscriptions speak proudly of overseeing the works of the South Pyramid, referring to Hawara. Others mention the earlier House of the King, suggesting a distinction between the abandoned Black Pyramid and the later successful monument. These inscriptions never state outright that the first pyramid failed. Egyptians preferred symbolic phrasing, but the contrast is unmistakable. A particularly interesting fragment from the Lahun Papyri refers to housing allocations for workers. At one point, a directive notes that workers are being reassigned to the new location. This likely indicates the moment when construction efforts shifted from Dashur to Hawara, confirming that the abandonment of the Black Pyramid was a large-scale logistical decision. But even after its abandonment as the king's tomb, the Black Pyramid did not disappear from the records. Another papyrus mentions the women of the royal household, placed in the northern chambers. This is a reference to the queens and princesses buried inside the Black Pyramid. The burial of these women suggests that, although unsuitable for the king, the pyramid remained sacred ground, a place still fit for royal burials, though not for the pharaoh himself. Perhaps the most mysterious of all the texts is a fragmentary inscription found on a limestone block near the site. Although damaged, the readable portion speaks of the chambers below and the place where the king shall not go. Egyptologists have debated its meaning. Some believe it refers simply to parts of the pyramid closed due to collapse. Others think it may describe sealed chambers intentionally hidden. It has even been suggested that the architects created secret underground areas beneath the pyramid that were never meant to be accessed again. The absence of detailed records is just as telling as the fragments we do have. The Egyptians documented building projects in great detail, especially successful ones. But the Black Pyramid features only lightly in surviving texts. This suggests its failure was something the bureaucracy chose not to emphasize. Egypt preferred to record triumphs, not disasters. Yet even in silence, The truth survived, not through dramatic inscriptions, but through quiet, practical notes written by scribes simply doing their jobs. The logistical files, the supply records, the mentions of sinking ground, all of these small details add together to form a clear conclusion. The collapse was real. It was known. And it influenced the entire course of the king's burial plans. What remains most striking is that the Egyptians did not treat the failure as a reason for shame. The rituals continued, the queens were buried, the site retained spiritual meaning. The pyramid was not destroyed or dismantled. It was allowed to stand, even in its flawed, damaged state. This acceptance reveals something profound about Egyptian belief. A monument could fail physically, but still hold spiritual value. Theories. Was the Black Pyramid a decoy? The Black Pyramid is one of the most unusual royal monuments in all of ancient Egypt. Its design, its failure, its abandonment, and its mysterious interior layout have led scholars to ask a bold and fascinating question. Was this pyramid ever meant to be a true tomb? Or was it something else? Something deliberately misleading, symbolic or strategically designed to protect the pharaoh's real burial place. Over the decades, historians, archaeologists, and researchers have proposed theories that challenge our understanding of its purpose. And as we examine these theories, the Black Pyramid becomes far more mysterious than it first appears. One of the most intriguing ideas is that the Black Pyramid was not a failure at all, at least not in the way we interpret it today. Instead, some believe it may have been intentionally designed as a decoy pyramid, a structure created to confuse tomb robbers and divert attention away from the true resting place of Amenemhat III. In ancient Egypt, tomb robbery was an enormous problem. Even the most secure pyramids with heavy stones and complex passageways were eventually broken into. The wealth buried with a king was irresistible to robbers. Many pharaohs tried elaborate traps, false passages, and hidden burial chambers. But Amenemhat III may have taken this strategy to another level. Imagine a pyramid so grand, so large, and so prominently placed that no one would suspect the king had chosen to rest elsewhere. Imagine a monument filled with chambers, shafts, and tunnels designed to confuse and mislead anyone who dared to enter. The Black Pyramid fits this description perfectly. Its internal layout is far more complex than necessary for a single burial. It includes extra corridors, unused rooms, and strange passageways whose purpose remains unclear. Some corridors lead nowhere. Some appear to have been sealed from the start. Others seem deliberately confusing. If Amenemhat III intended the Black Pyramid to function as a spiritual decoy, a place that looked like a tomb but did not actually contain the king, it would explain much of its unusual structure. But there is another layer to this theory. The collapse of the pyramid may not have been the sole reason the king abandoned it. Many archaeologists point out that the pharaoh likely knew about the structural problems early on. The sinking was slow, gradual, and obvious. The engineers surely recognized it long before the pyramid was complete. Yet construction continued. Workers reinforced chambers, repaired cracks, and strengthened walls. If Amenemhat III realized the pyramid was failing during construction, why continue with such dedication? Why invest resources into a structure already showing signs of collapse? Unless the collapse didn't matter, because he never intended to use it as his tomb. This idea becomes even more compelling when we consider his second pyramid at Hawara. The Hawara pyramid was built with extraordinary security, massive quartzite blocks, giant monolithic chambers, nearly impenetrable structures. It was clearly designed to protect something of great value, the king's body. Compared to Hawara, the Black Pyramid appears almost experimental, almost symbolic. Another theory suggests that the Black Pyramid was meant to serve as a symbolic tomb, not a physical one. In Egyptian belief, a king could have more than one resting place, one physical, one spiritual. In some cases, pharaohs built symbolic tombs in locations considered sacred to particular gods. For example, the cenotaph of Seti I in Abydos was not intended to house his body, but instead his spiritual presence. Could the Black Pyramid have served a similar purpose? The pyramid stands at Dashur, an area with deep spiritual significance. The Bent Pyramid and Red Pyramid are located here, structures associated with the divine transformation of kings. Dashur was not just a building site, it was a holy landscape. Some scholars argue that Amenemhat III deliberately chose Dashur for a spiritual monument, not to house his body but to anchor his presence in a region tied to the afterlife. According to this theory, the internal chambers of the Black Pyramid served a ritual role, perhaps a place where the king's spiritual transformation was symbolically enacted. The presence of two royal women inside the pyramid supports this idea. Their burials may have been part of a broader spiritual purpose, anchoring the royal family's presence in the sacred landscape. Beyond these interpretations, there is another category of theory, one that ventures into forbidden territory. Some believe the Black Pyramid may have been used to store objects, knowledge, or rituals not meant for the public eye. Ancient Egypt had secret rites, restricted temples, and ceremonial knowledge known only to high priests. If the Black Pyramid was built as a sealed ritual complex, never intended to be fully accessible, its collapse might have simply accelerated a process already planned. Concealment. Its dark, damaged state today may actually resemble something close to its intended final form. Sealed, hidden, forbidden. Even the pyramid's strange color has played a role in these interpretations. Some claim the blackened surface symbolizes the black land of Egypt, Kemet, the soil of rebirth. Others connect its darkness to Osiris, the god of the underworld. These symbolic meanings, though speculative, cannot be fully dismissed. The Egyptians embedded symbolism into everything they built. The color black represented fertility, rebirth, and the cycle of death and regeneration. It is possible, though not proven, that the Black Pyramid's dark transformation over time enhanced these symbolic associations, influencing how ancient Egyptians viewed the structure long after its collapse. Another fascinating theory revolves around hidden knowledge. Some researchers propose that the sealed chambers beneath the pyramid, those detected by radar but never explored, could contain writings, ritual texts, or lost practices no longer known to history. Egypt was a civilization of secrets. Priests guarded knowledge, passed down through generations. It is not impossible that certain rituals or documents were intentionally buried in inaccessible places to preserve them for eternity. While this theory remains speculative, it contributes to the enduring aura of mystery that surrounds the Black Pyramid. Finally, there is a theory that unites all the others. Perhaps the collapse of the Black Pyramid was not the cause of its abandonment, but the excuse. Perhaps Amenemhat III always intended to construct two pyramids, one symbolic, one physical, one spiritual anchor, one eternal tomb. The structural failure simply provided a practical justification for shifting the main burial to Hawara. In this interpretation, the Black Pyramid becomes a puzzle, a decoy, a monument to hidden beliefs. Not a failure, but a design with multiple purposes. What makes these theories so compelling is that none of them fully contradict the historical evidence. The pyramid did collapse, but may have been repurposed. The king did build a second pyramid, but may have planned to do so regardless. The internal chambers are confusing, perhaps intentionally, and the sealed voids beneath the structure have never been opened, leaving room for endless possibilities. The Black Pyramid remains silent on these theories. It neither confirms nor denies them. It simply stands dark and enigmatic, inviting speculation, a monument that refuses to reveal its full purpose. Modern exploration, what today's science reveals. For centuries, the Black Pyramid stood in silence. Explorers approached it cautiously. Early archaeologists examined it briefly. But no one truly understood the extent of its collapse until modern technology arrived. In the last few decades, scientists have used advanced tools, ground-penetrating radar, 3D laser scanning, seismic imaging, structural analysis, and drone surveying to explore the pyramid in ways the ancient builders could never have imagined. And what they discovered is astonishing. The Black Pyramid is not just a ruin. It is a frozen disaster, a monument caught in the middle of collapsing, preserved like a time capsule of structural failure and architectural ambition. Modern exploration began with a simple question: how unstable is the Black Pyramid today? Researchers were shocked by the answer. The entire structure is twisted. The core is warped, chambers are crushed on one side and stretched on the other. The pyramid's internal framework resembles a building struck by a slow-motion earthquake that never stopped. The weight of the mud brick, under thousands of years of erosion, has pulled the interior downward, shifting everything out of alignment. Laser scans reveal corridors that once ran straight, now bend like softened wax. Ceilings sag by several feet. Walls lean inward at dangerous angles. In some places, wooden beams inserted by ancient engineers have snapped in half, their broken ends distorted by the pressure of thousands of tons above them. The pyramid is still sinking, slowly, imperceptibly, but undeniably. Gravity is still pulling it inward. Ground-penetrating radar, or GPR, provided an even clearer picture. When researchers scanned beneath the pyramid, they expected to find solid earth, or at most, fractured stone foundations. Instead, the scans revealed multiple voids, some small, some surprisingly large. These empty pockets exist beneath several sections of the pyramid. Some are directly under the central axis, others beneath the western flank, and some beneath what appears to be the original location of the king's planned burial chamber. These voids could have been caused by the shifting soil and collapse of lower tunnels. But many of them have regular shapes, rectangular or square. They do not match natural geological patterns. This raises a tantalizing possibility. Some of these voids may be chambers built by the ancient Egyptians, sealed and abandoned long before the collapse began. If so, they remain untouched to this day. Seismic imaging, which uses vibrations to map underground density, confirm that several of these voids are hollow. They have not filled with sand or debris. Something, possibly air-filled space, possibly objects, still occupies them. But the pyramid is so unstable that no excavation team has been allowed to drill or enter these areas. Even the slightest disturbance could trigger a chain reaction of collapses. For now, the secrets beneath the pyramid remain locked away. Researchers also mapped the internal passageways in detail. They discovered that some corridors once connected to areas now completely sealed by collapsed brick. Others appear to have led to the outside before the earth around the pyramid swallowed them. One corridor in particular showed evidence of being intentionally blocked by the ancient builders. Behind it, radar detected a void. This has fueled speculation that the sealed-off space may hold artifacts, inscriptions, or remnants of rituals performed during the final phases of construction. Structural engineers studying the pyramid have produced digital simulations showing how the collapse progressed. According to their models, the structural failure began at the base, where waterlogged soil could no longer support the weight of the rising pyramid. As the ground subsided, the lower chambers compressed. The sinking accelerated unevenly. Some sections dropped faster than others. This uneven sinking twisted the core of the pyramid. Over centuries, the warped shape worsened. These models reveal something important. The collapse was inevitable. No amount of reinforcement could have saved the pyramid once it reached a certain height. The soil beneath simply did not have the strength to support it. Even if the ancient engineers had used stone instead of mud brick, the weaknesses in the ground would eventually have caused cracking and instability. The pyramid's failure was built into its foundation. Drone surveys provided another perspective, an aerial view of the mound-like structure. From above, the Black Pyramid does not resemble the clean geometry of Giza or the elegant form of the bent pyramid. It looks almost melted, like a mountain of earth slowly slumping outward. But drone imaging also revealed subtle traces of the original layout of the complex around it, remnants of walls, foundations of temples, and faint outlines of processional paths that have long since vanished from ground level. Thermal imaging added yet another layer of mystery. At certain times of day, the pyramid radiates heat differently across its surface. Some areas cool more slowly, some release stored heat more rapidly. These inconsistencies often indicate differences in density beneath the surface, suggesting hidden chambers or hollow spaces. Combined with the radar data, the thermal map further supports the idea that parts of the pyramid remain unexplored. Perhaps most fascinating are the discoveries inside the burial chambers of the royal women. When scanned with high-resolution 3D imaging, the chambers revealed microfractures, shifts, and distortions that show exactly how the collapse affected them. The sarcophagi were pushed slightly out of alignment, the floors bent, the ceilings dropped. Yet, remarkably, many of the artifacts inside remained intact. This suggests that the collapse did not happen violently. It happened slowly, over decades and centuries, allowing the contents of the chambers to settle without being destroyed. One of the most debated findings involves an anomaly detected directly beneath the pyramid's central axis, a void larger than any other. Its shape is irregular, but not random. It appears to have walls. Some researchers believe it is simply a sinkhole caused by the shifting of the foundation. Others believe it is a chamber never completed or sealed off before the collapse. A few speculate that it may have been the pharaoh's original burial chamber before he abandoned the site. Because of the pyramid's extreme instability, this void may never be explored in our lifetime. What modern technology has shown us is that the Black Pyramid is far more complex and far more mysterious than anyone realized. It is not just a ruined mound of mud brick. It is an architectural catastrophe preserved in slow motion, a labyrinth of twisted corridors still holding ancient secrets, a structure that continues to descend into the earth even now, a monument that tells the story of a pharaoh's ambition, the limits of ancient engineering, and the unstoppable power of nature. Despite all our advances, the Black Pyramid remains largely unexplored. Only a fraction of its mysteries have been uncovered, and the most intriguing parts, the sealed voids, the twisted corridors, the possible hidden chambers, remain beyond our reach. Conclusion: the Pyramid, Egypt, does not celebrate. The Black Pyramid of Egypt stands alone in the desert, forgotten by tourists, ignored by travel guides, and rarely spoken about in the same breath as the great monuments of Giza or Saqqara. But perhaps that silence tells us more about this pyramid than any inscription carved in stone. It is a monument that does not shine, a monument that does not stand tall, a monument that does not represent perfection. Instead, it represents something far more human, far more powerful, and far more mysterious. The story of ambition, failure, adaptation, and secrets buried beneath the sands of time. As we reach the end of this journey, we return to the question that has lingered from the beginning: what is the true legacy of the Black Pyramid? To answer this, we must look not only at what it is, but at what it represents. This pyramid was born from ambition. Amenemhat III, one of the greatest pharaohs of the Middle Kingdom, dared to innovate. to build differently, to move beyond the strict formulas of the Old Kingdom. He chose new materials. He experimented with new designs. He embraced a vision that challenged tradition. The Black Pyramid was not a careless mistake. It was a bold attempt to create a new era in pyramid construction. But ambition alone is not enough to defy the laws of nature. The soft, shifting soil of Dashur betrayed the foundation. The mud brick core, though efficient, could not withstand centuries of pressure. The complex chambers compromised stability. Layer by layer, year by year, the pyramid sank, cracked and twisted under its own weight. A monument meant to embody eternity instead revealed the vulnerability of human creation. Yet even in failure, the Black Pyramid did not lose its significance. Instead, it transformed. It became the tomb of royal women, a sanctuary for queens and princesses whose stories are preserved in jewelry, inscriptions, and fragments discovered deep inside the collapsing core. Their burials show that the site still held spiritual importance, even as it failed physically. The rituals continued. The priests performed their duties. The sacred energy of the place was never fully abandoned, and beyond the burials, the pyramid became a place of mystery. Hidden tunnels, sealed chambers, and radar-detected voids beneath the foundation hint that the Black Pyramid may still hold secrets untouched by modern hands. Whether these spaces contain collapsed rooms, forgotten rituals, symbolic chambers, or something we cannot yet imagine, they add an irresistible layer of intrigue to the story. The collapse itself has become part of the pyramid's identity. Where Giza's pyramids symbolize perfection, the Black Pyramid symbolizes endurance. It has survived not because it stood strong, but because it held together even as it broke apart. Its dark, melted appearance, shaped by sunlight, salt, erosion, and time, makes it a monument unlike any other in Egypt. A monument transformed by nature into something entirely new. But perhaps the most profound legacy of the Black Pyramid lies in its influence. The disaster forced Amenemhat III to rethink everything. His new pyramid at Hawara was engineered with extreme caution, precision, and durability. The collapse of Dashur shaped the design of one of the most secure burial chambers in Egyptian history. In this sense, the Black Pyramid did not fail. It taught, it guided, it shaped the king's final monument. It also shaped our understanding of ancient Egypt. Through its ruins, we learn that Egypt was not only a civilization of triumphs, but also one of experiments, risks, and imperfections. It reminds us that the pharaohs were human, brilliant, ambitious, powerful, but still bound by the limits of their world. The Black Pyramid is a rare window into the moments when those limits became unavoidable. Yet its silence remains the most haunting part of its story. Egypt does not showcase the Black Pyramid the way it showcases Giza. Guides do not bring crowds there. No massive restoration project stands around it. Instead, it sits alone, surrounded by sand, its dark form slowly sinking back into the earth. It is almost as if Egypt has chosen to let this monument rest, undisturbed, untouched, and uncelebrated. And maybe that is fitting. Some mysteries are not meant to be fully revealed. Some stories are meant to be discovered, slowly, piece by piece, through fragments and ruins. The Black Pyramid is a monument of shadows. A monument that absorbs the sunlight, rather than reflecting it. A monument that invites curiosity but resists full understanding. As we conclude this exploration, we stand before the Black Pyramid not as tourists, but as witnesses to a forgotten chapter of history. A chapter filled with courage, experimentation, collapse, and resilience. A chapter written not in perfect stone, but in cracked mud brick and shifting sand. The Black Pyramid is not the story of a perfect monument. It is the story of a monument that dared to be different. A monument that teaches us that greatness is not only measured by success, but also by the risks taken along the way. It is a symbol of ambition, a symbol of mystery, a symbol of the hidden, the forbidden, the unfinished. A pyramid Egypt does not celebrate, yet one that will forever hold a place among the most fascinating and haunting structures ever built.